Imagine, if you will, a highway stretching endlessly, baking under a merciless sun, far from the hum of city life. This isn't just any road. It's a place where fortunes are made and lost, where dreams can be shattered or, in rare, almost miraculous instances, found by sheer chance. On this particular sweltering afternoon, the asphalt shimmered, creating mirages that danced in the heat, almost mirroring the frantic, swirling chaos inside one very powerful man. Our story begins with young Nia, a name that means purpose, a fitting title for a girl who would soon unravel a web of deceit far grander than anyone could imagine. At just 10 years old, Nia was walking home from school, her worn backpack a familiar weight on her shoulders. But inside that backpack, nestled amongst her textbooks, was something far more remarkable than mere school supplies. A small, sturdy toolkit, a gift from her beloved Uncle Alistair. You see, Nia wasn't your average 10-year-old. She saw the world not just in colors and shapes, but in gears, wires, and the silent language of struggling engines. Suddenly, a jarring sight broke the monotony of the deserted road. A gleaming obsidian supercar, a machine that screamed luxury and power, sat motionless on the shoulder, its hood gaping like a wide-open mouth, seemingly gasping for air. Pacing beside it, a figure in a suit that surely cost more than Nia's entire house, was Mr. Sterling. He was a titan of industry, a man accustomed to command, but right now his meticulously coiffed composure was crumbling. He barked into his phone, his voice a tight wire of desperation. "I don't care how much you charge for the tow. I've been stuck on this deserted road for 2 hours. I have a meeting with the state governor in less than 3 hours, for heaven's sake." Even the mighty can be brought to their knees by a stalled engine, reminding us that true control often lies beyond our titles and fortunes. Now, Nia's Aunt Lena always cautioned her about talking to strangers, especially those who seemed so glaringly out of place in their humble rural community. But something about Mr. Sterling's raw, unfiltered desperation, the sheer frustration radiating off him, made Nia pause. She adjusted her backpack, feeling the reassuring weight of Uncle Alistair's tools, and took a deep breath. "Excuse me, sir," she called out, her voice surprisingly steady for such a small figure. "Need some help with your car?" Mr. Sterling turned, his irritation quickly morphing into thinly veiled condescension when he saw the small girl with her bright braids, faded shorts, and a t-shirt that was clearly too big. "That's very kind of you, little one," he said, a dismissive wave of his hand. "But this isn't a toy car. I need a certified engineer. This is a high-performance vehicle." How often do we judge a book by its cover, missing the brilliance hidden within? We sometimes forget that true wisdom isn't limited by age, race, or status. Nia, undeterred, simply shrugged and stepped closer, peering under the hood. "My uncle has a garage, and he's been teaching me about cars since I learned to walk," she explained, her voice all business. "I can at least take a look." Before Mr. Sterling could protest further, she had already dropped her backpack and was leaning over the engine with a surprising, almost unnerving confidence. "When did the problem start?" she asked, her intelligent eyes already scanning the complex machinery. Mr. Sterling, realizing he truly had nothing left to lose, sighed. "The engine started overheating about 40 minutes ago, and then it just died." Nia nodded, leaning in closer, her keen senses at work. "Did you smell anything sweet? Like syrup?" Mr. Sterling blinked, surprised. "Yes, now that you mention it. How did you know?" "Cooling system," Nia stated, pointing to a small puddle glistening under the car that Mr. Sterling hadn't even noticed. "It's leaking coolant. That's why it overheated." As she spoke, Mr. Sterling watched her with growing curiosity. There was something strangely familiar about her, the way she furrowed her brow slightly in concentration, the methodical way her eyes scanned the engine. He found himself asking, almost against his will, "What's your name?" "Nia," she replied, extending a small hand already stained with grease from her quick inspection. Mr. Sterling hesitated, then shook it. "Mr. Sterling, Andrew Sterling." "Nice to meet you, Mr. Sterling," Nia said. "I think I can fix this, temporarily." She opened her backpack, retrieving a small metal case. "Uncle Alistair makes me carry an emergency kit. You never know when someone might need help on the road." Mr. Sterling watched, fascinated, as Nia worked with impressive efficiency, locating a leak in the radiator hose and applying a special tape. "That should hold until you get to town," she explained. "But you'll need to add water to replace the lost coolant." It was then, as Nia raised her hand to brush a stray braid from her face, that Mr. Sterling saw it. A unique, antique gold ring with a captivating sapphire stone, held onto her small finger with thread wrapped around the base to keep it from slipping off. His world seemed to stop. The sun glinted off the stone, reflecting an internal pattern he would recognize anywhere. A small, crescent-shaped imperfection. A ring he had given, 12 years ago, to a little girl named Nia at an institution called Haven House, days before it was mysteriously closed. The breath hitched in his throat. "That ring," Mr. Sterling began, his voice suddenly trembling. "It's very unusual." Nia looked down at her hand. "It was my mother's. My adoptive mother, Ilara. She died last year." A shadow of sadness crossed her face. She said it was a symbol of an important promise. This wasn't just a chance encounter. This wasn't just a broken car. This was a faded roadside spark, rekindling a promise he had long since forgotten. A promise buried under a mountain of corporate ambition and a decade of silence. Sometimes, the most profound answers come from the most unexpected places. Often from those we least expect to listen to. True wisdom isn't limited by age, race, or status. Then as Mr. Sterling drove Nia home, his mind racing with questions, he couldn't shake the feeling that this unassuming little ring was about to unlock far more than just a broken engine. It was about to unlock a past he had tried to bury. A past that held the key to secrets far greater than he could have ever imagined. Nami Nios Pa, get ready. Because the whispers of the past are about to get very, very loud. As Mr. Sterling drove Nia home, the casual questions he asked masked a desperate urgency building within him. "So, Nia," he began, trying to keep his voice light. "How long have you lived here, and who do you live with since your adoptive mother passed?" Nia, sensing no malice, answered openly. "I live with my Aunt Lena and Uncle Alistair. They took me in when Ilara died." Mr. Sterling gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Have you always lived here?" he pressed, his voice barely casual now. "Since I was 3, Nia replied, a slight hesitation in her voice. "Before that? Ilara didn't talk about it much. I know I was adopted from an institution called Haven House. It closed soon after." The words hit Mr. Sterling like a physical blow. Haven House. He almost lost control of the car. "Are you sure?" "Yes." "Why, do you know it?" Nia asked, her curiosity piqued. Mr. Sterling took a deep breath, fighting to regain his composure. I did, a long time ago." As they approached a modest yet well-kept house, Mr. Sterling stopped the car. Nia thanked him and said goodbye, but before she could get out, he handed her a card. "Nia," he said, his voice softer, more earnest than she'd heard it. "If you ever need anything at all, please call me." Nia accepted the card with a curious look and ran toward the house, the sapphire ring sparkling in the afternoon sun. Mr. Sterling watched her go, his hands trembling as he picked up his phone. He had a call to make. That night, sleep was a distant dream for Andrew Sterling. He lay awake staring at enlarged photos of the sapphire ring his investigator, a sharp-eyed man named Ramirez, had captured. The jewel, the very same one he had given 12 years ago to a little girl named Nia at the Haven House institution, as a promise that he would come back for her. A promise he never kept. The weight of that broken vow pressed down on him, heavier than any corporate burden. It was a stark reminder of how easy it is for powerful individuals to overlook the consequences of their actions on the vulnerable. How ambition can blind us to our most fundamental moral obligations. We convince ourselves that out of sight, out of mind applies to our past mistakes, but guilt, like a persistent shadow, always finds a way to catch up. In his opulent office at Sterling Enterprises, Andrew buried himself in documents scattered across his desk. 12 years ago, his own father, Victor Sterling, had bought the Haven House property for a fraction of its value, citing nebulous financial irregularities. Coincidentally, Andrew was named CEO shortly thereafter. "Mr. Sterling?" his assistant announced, pulling him from his dark reverie. "Mrs. Hayes from Legal is here with the Legacy Towers documents." Legacy Towers, the luxury complex under construction on the very site where Haven House had once stood. Andrew quickly tucked the old reports away before Miss Hayes entered. "The Haven House acquisition documents are here," Miss Hayes said, handing him a folder. "Although I don't understand why we're revisiting old business. Your father was quite specific about keeping these documents on file." Andrew replied dryly, "My father is retired in Florida, and I run the company now." As he examined the documents, Andrew discovered suspicious bank transfers and, more disturbingly, a list of children who had been relocated when Haven House closed. Nia's name was circled in red, with a handwritten note. "Special case. Contact VS." It sent a chill down his spine. His investigator, Ramirez, called with more news, his voice grave. I found Ilara Johnson. Car accident last year, brakes failed, suspicious circumstances. And the adoption records? Missing. Officially, Nia Johnson never existed at Haven House. Andrew's jaw tightened. Find out everything you can about her current family, he ordered, the urgency in his voice undeniable. Meanwhile, oblivious to the storm brewing around her, Nia was working in the small, cluttered workshop behind her Aunt Lena and Uncle Alistair's house. The place was her refuge, tools organized neatly on the walls, the comforting smell of oil and grease, the quiet hum of machines waiting to be understood. Did you manage to fix the old radio? Uncle Alistair asked, entering the workshop. Nia smiled, holding up a vintage 1950S radio. I did it! Just had to reconnect a few wires. Uncle Alistair affectionately ruffled his niece's braids. You have a gift, girl. I've never seen anyone understand machines like you. Nia twirled the sapphire ring on her finger. Uncle, do you think my mom would be proud? Uncle Alistair's eyes softened. Ilara was so proud of you, Nia, she would have burst. Little did they know, this peaceful moment was the calm before a much larger storm. The whispers of the past, once faint echoes, were now growing louder, threatening to unravel a decade of deception. And the key to it all? The unassuming sapphire ring on Nia's finger held secrets far more profound than anyone could have ever imagined. The threads of truth were starting to weave together, pulling us closer to a revelation that would shake an empire to its very core. The peaceful moment in Uncle Alistair's workshop was shattered by Nia's innocent revelation. I met a rich man the other day, she began, twirling the sapphire ring on her finger. His car broke down and I fixed it. He recognized my ring. Uncle Alistair froze, his easy smile vanishing. Aunt Lena, who had just appeared at the workshop door, gasped. What man, Dia? She asked, her voice strained. Mr. Sterling, Nia replied, oblivious to the sudden tension. She pulled out the card Andrew had given her. He seemed strange when he saw my ring. Uncle Alistair's face paled and he exchanged a quick, worried glance with Aunt Lena. Nia, dear, Aunt Lena said, her voice trembling slightly. Remember when we promised to tell you the truth about Ilara when you were older? I think that time has come. That night, gathered in the quiet living room, Nia heard the hidden story. She listened, transfixed, as Aunt Lena and Uncle Alistair recounted how Ilara, a dedicated nurse at Haven House, had run away with her when the institution suddenly closed its doors all those years ago. They had changed their names, gone into hiding for years, always looking over their shoulders, terrified of being found. It was a life of constant fear, of whispered warnings and hurried goodbyes, all to protect a secret more profound than Nia could ever have imagined. The weight of this secret, the years of silent vigilance from her adoptive family, now settled heavily upon her. Your mother left this for you, Aunt Lena said, her hand shaking slightly as she handed Nia a yellowed envelope. She made us promise to give it to you only if someone from the Sterling family showed up. With trembling hands, Nia began to read. My dear Nia, the letter began, Ilara's familiar handwriting bringing tears to Nia's eyes. If you are reading this, someone has found you. There are things you need to know. Meanwhile, back in Andrew Sterling's luxurious apartment, Ramirez called again, his voice urgent. Sir, someone else is investigating Haven House, a reporter named Solomon Vance. Andrew's heart pounded. What does he know? Quite a lot, Ramirez replied. And he has a theory about why your father was interested in certain children at the institution, specifically children with unusual talents. The idea sent a chill through Andrew. He had suspected his father's dealings were unethical, but unusual talents? It hinted at something far more sinister than mere financial irregularities. This was a critical piece of the puzzle, revealing the insidious depths of his family's involvement. The next day, a sleek black SUV pulled up in front of Nia's school. Two men in dark suits watched as she left with her friends. Is that her? One asked, his gaze fixed on the girl with the sapphire ring. Yes, Mr. Sterling Sr. wants to see her immediately. What they didn't know was that Uncle Alistair was parked across the street, his eyes trained on Nia, a silent sentinel. He saw the men, sensed the danger. He took out his cell phone and dialed a number Ilara had left for emergencies. Solomon Vance. It's about Haven House, Uncle Alistair said, his voice low and urgent. And a girl with a sapphire ring. I found the proof you're looking for. At Sterling Enterprises, Andrew stared at his father Victor, who had flown in from Florida without warning, his face a mask of cold fury. What's this about reviewing the Haven House documents? Victor demanded. I thought that matter was closed. Andrew met his father's gaze, unflinching. I found Nia, Dad. The girl with the sapphire ring. Victor paled, but quickly regained his composure. So what, just another orphan? What matters is legacy towers. Billions are at stake. He laughed dryly. What was so special about that girl? Don't you really understand what's at stake? Some children are valuable. They have talents that can be exploited. Andrew's voice was slow, deliberate. She fixes things. She can look at broken machines and just understand them. Victor's smile was icy. Think of the military applications, the patents, the power. Why do you think we bought that institution? This chilling confession confirmed Andrew's worst fears. His father wasn't just a ruthless businessman, he was an architect of deceit, exploiting innocent children for profit and power. This was Project Chimera, a secret program to identify and exploit children with special talents, as hinted at by the investigator. It was a stark example of how corporate greed can lead to the dehumanization and exploitation of innocent lives, a dark underbelly hidden behind a gleaming corporate facade. What neither Sterling realized was that Nia, at that very moment, was already reading Alara's letter, discovering the truth about her past, her special talents, and more importantly, discovering why the sapphire ring was so valuable. It wasn't just a piece of jewelry, but a key to documents that could bring down an empire. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place. The air thrummed with unspoken tension, a silent countdown to an inevitable explosion. On one side, a powerful corporation ready to protect its secrets at any cost. On the other, a 10-year-old girl with an extraordinary talent and a ring worth far more than its weight in sapphires. And, caught between them, a man trying to decide which side of the story he wanted to be on. The stage was set. The whispers of the past were about to erupt into a roar, ready to expose a dark agenda and change lives forever. The greatest darkness often hides behind the brightest facades. When power becomes an end in itself, humanity is often the first casualty. But even in the deepest shadows, the light of truth can emerge from the most unexpected sources. And that light was about to shine very, very brightly. The air in the conference room on the 50th floor of Sterling Enterprises crackled with an unbearable tension. Every executive present felt it, a premonition of disaster. Victor Sterling, usually the epitome of control, paced furiously, his face a contorted mask of pure rage. "Where is my son?" Victor bellowed, his voice echoing off the polished glass table. "Andrew should have been here an hour ago. This emergency meeting concerns the very fabric of our legacy." As if on cue, the colossal double doors swung open, revealing Andrew. But he wasn't alone. Beside him stood a woman in a razor-sharp suit, her presence radiating quiet authority. Was someone no one in the room recognized, yet instantly felt the weight of? "Sorry I'm late, Dad," Andrew said, his voice unnervingly calm, a stark contrast to Victor's fury. This composure alone made Victor frown, a tiny crack in his iron facade. "This is Federal Prosecutor Camille Lewis. She has some questions about Project Chimera." The very mention of Project Chimera hit Victor like a physical blow. It was the code name for his most guarded, most heinous secret, the program to identify and exploit children with special talents, a name that should never under any circumstances be spoken in public, let alone to federal authorities. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" Victor hissed, his voice a venomous whisper, his eyes narrowing to slits. Andrew ignored him, walking directly to the massive screen on the wall. With a click, he connected his laptop. "Something I should have done a long time ago," he stated, his voice resonating with newfound conviction. "The truth about Haven House and the other 5 institutions you've closed down over the last 15 years. The lights in the opulent room dimmed, plunging the executives into a tense silence as the screen came to life. What flickered across it were not financial reports, but damning documents, chilling photographs, and detailed reports. Records of 48 special children identified, tested, and systematically exploited by Sterling Enterprises. The sheer number sent a collective gasp through the room. "You stole confidential documents!" Victor roared, trying desperately to regain control, his voice cracking with desperation. "That's corporate crime! Industrial espionage!" "Documents evidencing far worse crimes, Dad," Andrew replied, his voice firm, unwavering. "Unauthorized experiments on minors, falsification of adoption records, bribery of public officials, intimidation of witnesses." Each charge landed like a hammer blow. Then a video began playing on the screen. It was grainy security footage from 12 years ago. A young nurse, whom Andrew now knew to be Alara Johnson, fleeing in the dead of night, clutching an infant, little Nia, in her arms. The next clip was even more chilling. Victor himself, instructing security guards, his voice cold and devoid of empathy. "Find her. The girl has significant military potential. We can't lose her." Andrew continued, his voice heavy with revelation. 3 Haven House employees died in accidents in the weeks that followed, including Ilara's brother, who had started asking questions about the closures. The room was silent, save for the hum of the projector. The implications were horrifying. "You have no idea of the implications," Victor began, his voice strained, desperate to regain some semblance of authority, but he was cut off. The double doors swung open again, and this time the entrance was even more impactful. Nia Johnson walked in, her small frame radiating an unexpected dignity. Beside her stood Uncle Alastair, his face grim, and Solomon Vance of the Metropolitan Tribune, carrying a professional camera, its red recording light glowing. "Nia," Andrew said softly, a flicker of concern in his eyes, "you didn't have to come." "Yes, I did," she replied, her voice steady and clear, imbued with a wisdom beyond her years. "Ilara always said that one day I would have to face the men who made us run." Victor looked at the girl, his expression shifting from initial shock to cold, calculating contempt. "So, you're the prodigious Project 17. I didn't imagine you'd be so small." Nia met his gaze, unflinching. Her voice was quiet, but carried the weight of years of unspoken pain. "And you're the man who killed my mother. Her brakes didn't fail by accident, did they?" Victor's lips curled into a confident smile, a chilling display of his arrogance. "Proving anything would be impossible. And you're forgetting who I am, girl. One phone call and all of this disappears." It was a classic power play, meant to intimidate and assert dominance. But this time it failed. Nia simply reached into her backpack and took out the sapphire ring. With deft, almost practiced fingers, she turned the stone, revealing a tiny, hidden compartment. From inside, she carefully extracted a minuscule device, smaller than her thumb. "Ilara was smarter than you thought," she said, her voice betraying not a hint of fear. "This is a storage device she hid in the ring. It contains backup copies of all the Haven House records, including recordings of your meetings with military doctors about harnessing children with enhanced cognitive abilities for strategic applications." Victor Sterling, the man who had controlled billions and manipulated countless lives, was for the first time in his life utterly speechless. "This is being broadcast live right now," Solomon Vance announced, pointing to his camera, its red light a beacon of truth. "To our studio and directly to social media platforms. Over 100,000 people are already watching." The roar of the internet, a digital wave of outrage, was already crashing down on Sterling Enterprises. Andrew walked over to his father, his voice low, firm, and final. "It's over. The prosecutor has a deal for me. Full cooperation in exchange for immunity. As for you, well, we'll let a jury decide." As federal agents entered the room to arrest Victor Sterling, Nia approached the man who had destroyed so many lives. Her eyes, clear and filled with a solemn strength, met his. "My mother taught me that broken machines can be fixed," she said calmly, her voice echoing the profound lesson of her life. "But broken people need to fix themselves. I hope you get that chance in prison." Victor was led away, his empire crumbling live for the world to see. The truth, amplified by courage, is the most powerful force for dismantling injustice. No empire built on lies and exploitation can stand forever. Even the smallest voice, armed with unwavering truth, can ignite a revolution when it speaks to power. The reckoning had begun, and the world was watching, ushering in a new, albeit difficult, chapter of rebuilding. Victor was led away for a chapter of rebuilding. In the days that followed, Victor Sterling's empire crumbled, lived for the world to see. Sterling Enterprises' stock plummeted. Investigations revealed decades of unethical practices, illegal experimentation, and systematic corruption. Andrew watched it all with a complex mix of relief and regret. He had lost his family's fortune, now tainted beyond measure, but he had found something far more valuable: his integrity. He had chosen the difficult path, but it was the path that led to true freedom. In the courthouse, as Victor awaited his preliminary hearing, Nia approached Andrew on the steps outside. The sapphire ring sparkled on her finger, no longer a symbol of secrets, but of truth revealed. "What happens now?" she asked, her young voice carrying the weight of a monumental discovery. Andrew looked out at the city skyline, at the gleaming skyscrapers that had been built with money stained by exploitation and suffering. Among them, the once proud Sterling building, which would soon lose its name. "Now," he said, his gaze fixed on the horizon, "we rebuild, not just buildings, but lives." What none of them could have predicted at that moment was how that rebuilding would transform not just their lives, but an entire community. An empire built on exploitation was crumbling. But from the ashes, something new and unexpected was about to be born. Something that would forever change the way the world viewed exceptional talent in unlikely places. 5 years have passed since the day Nia Johnson exposed the truth about the Sterling Empire. On a sunny spring morning, she walked through the halls of a newly opened Lara Johnson Center for Young Innovators. It was a sprawling complex of labs, workshops, and classrooms, built on the very same site where the Haven House institution once stood. The sensors in the East Wing are still malfunctioning, Nia, now 15, told a group of engineers following her. Her experienced eyes identified problems in complex systems with the same ease with which she had detected a leak in Mr. Sterling's supercar radiator years ago. At the back of the center, Andrew Sterling talked with investors, his suit replaced by jeans and a button-down shirt. The former billionaire heir had donated his entire personal fortune to found the Prometheus Initiative, no longer a project of exploitation, but a program dedicated to identifying talented young people from marginalized communities and providing them with opportunities. "We discovered 23 children with exceptional talents just this quarter," Andrew explained, his voice filled with genuine pride. "Each one receives a full scholarship and personalized mentoring. No contracts, no exploitation, no secrets." Andrew's transformation surprised many, especially former executives at Sterling Enterprises. The man who had once been heir to an empire built on exploitation was now dedicating his life to repairing damage and creating genuine opportunities. "Nia is about to publish her 3rd patent," Uncle Alistair said, beaming, as he now ran the center's engineering program. "Harvard, MIT, and Stanford are already fighting over who will recruit her." On the center's main wall, an exhibit documented the entire story. Photographs of Haven House, newspaper clippings about the fall of Sterling Enterprises, and a headline that changed everything: "Sterling Empire collapses after teens' revelations." Meanwhile, in a medium-security federal prison, Victor Sterling stared at the walls of his cell. The tycoon who once controlled billions and manipulated lives now spent his days in confinement, abandoned by former allies, his fortune confiscated, his name forever tarnished. "He refuses to participate in any rehabilitation program," a guard commented. "He still believes he'll get out of here and rebuild everything." The arrogance that had been his trademark was now just a sad caricature, an old man clinging to dreams of power that would never come true. That night, the Lara Johnson Center held its first major graduation ceremony. 12 young people from disadvantaged communities had completed the intensive 2-year program, each with job offers or college scholarships in hand. Nia, still too young to graduate but already recognized as a mentor by her older peers, took the stage to give a speech. "When I was 10, I fixed a stranger's car on the side of the road," she began, twirling the sapphire ring on her finger, now a symbol not of secrets, but of transformation. That small act of generosity exposed a web of exploitation. But it also paved the way for something new and better. Andrew watched from the back of the auditorium, his eyes watering. The girl who had destroyed his old world had, in fact, given him a purpose that no fortune could buy. "My adoptive mother Ilara used to say that broken machines can be fixed, but broken systems need to be redesigned from the ground up," Nia continued. "That's what we're doing here, not just fixing what was wrong, but building something entirely new." The next day, Nia received an unexpected letter. The sender, Catherine Sterling, Victor's daughter, who had renounced her family name after the scandal and now worked as a federal prosecutor. "We found 5 more institutions with programs similar to Haven House," the letter read. "Thanks to your testimony and the evidence you gathered, we've been able to identify and protect 37 more children. Some have talents like yours. When you're ready, they'd love to meet you." As Nia read the letter to Andrew, Uncle Alistair, and Aunt Lena, a sense of closure hung in the air. What had begun with a chance encounter on the side of the road had become a quiet revolution, transforming not only their lives, but an entire system that had thrived on the exploitation of the vulnerable. "You know what's ironic?" Andrew said, a wry smile on his face. "Victor always said he was building a legacy, and he really did. Just not the way he imagined it." Nia looked out the window at the children playing in the center's gardens, free from the kind of manipulation that had nearly defined her own destiny. "Real power was never in the buildings or bank accounts," she replied. "It was in the ability to make a difference in other people's lives." That evening, as the sun set over the Lara Johnson Center, a new sign was unveiled at the entrance. "Every talent deserves to flourish. Every child deserves freedom." It was a promise for the future, built on the ashes of a past they refused to repeat. If this story of justice, resilience, and transformation touched your heart, If it made you think, made you feel, then please, hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear this message, and subscribe to our channel for more tales that challenge, inspire, and remind us of the incredible human spirit. Your support helps us amplify these crucial stories. Thank you for listening.